Hello, everybody, and welcome to Joe the Lawyer. I'm your host, Joe Palmetto, a practicing criminal defense attorney in Pittsburgh, PA, jumping on for a live stream. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I'm just checking out some recent true crime news. But if anybody wants to jump in the chat, I am willing to talk about, discuss with you anything, any topic that you want to speak about, whether it be politics or otherwise. Let me sign into the chat right here. Open in the web browser. Okay. And let's get off of that so that we can see. So we're going to start off with this article. Florida woman allegedly shoots two ex-husbands in the same day. That's pretty impressive. So before we dig in, raise your cup, your glass in the air. Cheers with me. It tastes better when we sip together. Cheers. And I mean impressive in a morbid and sad sort of way. You know what it reminds me of? Well, let's read it and then I'll tell you what it reminds me of. A Florida woman has been charged with murder in connection with the deaths of two of her ex-husbands. So not only did she shoot them, she shot to kill. On December 18th, the Manatee County Sheriff's Department, I like the name of that county because I like manatees, identified Susan Avalon, 51, as a person of interest in a shooting in Bradenton, Florida, the previous day. The reason I know Bradenton is because that's where the Pittsburgh Pirates have their spring training camp. On December 17th, deputies arrived at the home of a 54-year-old man who has not been named. He told them someone shot him in the abdomen when he answered the door, and he believed it might have been his ex-wife. He wasn't sure that it was his ex-wife. They were married for 11 years, and detectives say Avalon owed the victim $4,000 in child support. Let's see, life in prison or $4,000. Okay. Avalon, she owed the victim. Okay, yeah, she owed him $4,000. Victim was transported to a hospital where he died that evening. That's kind of sad, very tragic. The statements that he made, okay, this is an interesting little legal tidbit here, would be what are considered likely dying declarations, right? Because now that he's dead, he can't come into court and testify. So his statement would be an out-of-court statement. It's classic hearsay. Hey, he's FIL. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Yes. I also water up at the sight of manatees. Anyway, his statement would normally not be used, but if you make if a person makes a statement right before they die, that's actually an exception to the hearsay rule, and it is admissible at court. So his identification of her as the shooter will be admissible. And they may have additional evidence as well, such as, ring cam or cameras close by. Who knows? Avalon allegedly picked up food from a Panera Bread and brought it with her to the home to entice the owner to answer the door. Detectives learned Avalon allegedly fired at the victim as soon as he opened the door. Knock, knock. I have your bagels and cream cheese and your bear claw. And then you open the door, and instead of the bear claw, you get the gun. Very sad. The victim's 15-year-old daughter was home at the time and reportedly heard gunfire, saw a masked person, and she was masked, Jesus, in a silver Honda Odyssey driving away. Well, that's why he wasn't 100% sure it was her. According to WTVT, authorities tracked the Odyssey's license plate, located Avalon at her home. When deputies arrived, they saw Avalon wiping down the car with bleach and asked to speak to her about her ex-husband. She reportedly asked them which one. WWSB reports this led them to Hillsborough County to conduct a welfare check on her second husband. Oh my gosh, how macabre. Who lived in Tampa. When they arrived at his home, they found the door had been forced open and a man was dead on the floor from gunshot wounds. Investigators determined the cases were related, according to the Manatee County Sheriff's Department. I mean, how were they related besides she just decided to take out both of her husbands in one fell swoop? WTVT reports the Manatee County Sheriff's Office believes Avalon allegedly shot her second ex-husband in Tampa, went to Panera Bread, then drove to her first ex-husband's home in Bradenton to shoot him. The Manatee County Sheriff's Office charged Avalon with first-degree murder. She's going to have 2 counts of first-degree murder. They really only need to get her on 1 because both of them are going to carry a life sentence, and nobody really lives 2 lives, so you don't really need 2 life sentences. They are reportedly working with the state attorney's office to seek the death penalty, according to WTVT. And extremely sad. I don't know what defense she would have available except to say it wasn't her. But it sounds to me like they have a lot of circumstantial evidence to say it was her, especially if the shooter appears at the second house with a Panera Bread bag. I'm sure Panera Bread doesn't want to be associated with this. I will go on the record of saying I am a fan of Panera Bread. I really like their Bear Claw. The Bear Claw and coffee if you go to Panera. And then if you're going to hit a combo, you got to hit like the sandwich and the soup or the salad and the soup. Their broccoli cream soup is pretty darn good. And let's see and their mac and cheese. My kids love their mac and cheese. Very, very solid. Hell hath no fury. That's about right, Tech 52. That's wild, man. She's just the movie it reminded me of is an all-time great movie where sometimes people just snap. Sometimes normal people just snap. And you guys, let me know if you've ever seen Falling Down. Okay, this is a tremendous film. And I remember seeing commercials for it when I was a kid. And it's just this businessman who he just has it, man. It's a hot day. He's in traffic in Los Angeles. Everybody's been kicking him when he's down. And he leaves his car in traffic and starts walking. And everybody who gets in his way, he just takes them out. And Michael Douglas was great in a lot of movies. You know, what comes to mind first is, of course, Wall Street. But to me, this is Michael Douglas in my mind. Just the scene in the fast, where he can't get the burger that he wants. Oh my God, freaking hilarious. I love that movie. Misery, that's close to Zephiel. The difference is in Misery that she's essentially torturing her victims, and in Falling, and it is a female, so maybe that's more appropriate. In Falling Down, this guy just snaps and he just goes on a rampage, and I don't know, I get a kick out of that movie anytime it's on. So that's a pretty wild story. Let's check out this one. Medical student allegedly pushed 72-year-old man into moving train in random New Year's Day attack. Bronx, New York, a medical student has been charged with attempted murder in connection with a random subway attack in the early hours of New Year's Day. You know, I thought after, what was that guy's name? Daniel Penny. He choked that guy and killed him, and then he won on the self-defense. And during that whole case, all I heard was how safe the New York subways are. And now we have a medical student charged with attempted murder in connection with a random subway attack in the early hours of New Year's Day. It will, listen here, Scott Allen. Scott, this is Diet Coke, sir. This is Diet Coke. Cheers. Pretty good. Have a sip with me. According to CBS News, 3:30 a.m. on January 1st, 72-year-old Julio Figueroa, wow, 72 years old, standing on the platform at a Bronx subway station when he was approached by a stranger and pushed into a southbound train that had just come into the station. He sustained head injuries after he reportedly bounced off the train and onto the platform. Wait a minute. He survived? Jesus. Oh, man. Thank God. Holy hell. The New York Post reports the attack rendered Figueroa unconscious. I might have to go to the Post on this one, but let's go through this. The random attack was allegedly carried out by 29-year-old Anton Aleshin, a medical student. He was arrested at the scene, charged with attempted murder, assault, reckless endangerment, and harassment. What's the point of the harassment charge? I don't know if you can feel safe anywhere in the Western Hemisphere. But if you want to get away, you go where Edward Snowden went. You go to Russia. The Russians have been harboring Edward Snowden. He'd have probably done 10 to 15 years in prison if he had remained in the United States. But he made it to Russia and like sort of a daring escape. And now he's free for the most part. You guys can't hear me? No audio? No audio? That's not on my end. Sorry. It's all my audio is still picking up. Is it back again? Because I'm sitting right here. I can see it on my mic. It says that my audio is going in. Is the audio back? Let me know, guys, please. Okay. Yeah, I don't always see it when it does that. When I'm live streaming, I use Streamlabs connected to YouTube. So there can be a buffering issue, etc. But on my end, it still looks like the audio is fine. So let's jump into this New York Post. Let's look into this New York Post. Maniac accused of randomly shoving 72-year-old in New York City subway is a Russian doctor. He is a doctor. Established Russian doctor working in Brooklyn. Anton Aleshin, 29 years old. Can you even be a doctor at 29? I mean, you have like 15 years of medical school. Into the side of a southbound number 4 train pulling into the 161 Yankee Stadium station. So he didn't push him in front of a train. He pushed him into the side of a moving train, which I guess is not quite as bad. The gentleman survived, thank God. Aleshin, who was arrested at the scene, told police he was halfway through a residency program at Brookdale University. Aleshin now faces a slew of charges. He's pleading not guilty. A legal aid spokesman declined to comment on behalf of Aleshin's attorney, Filomena Lucia Stabile, who is affiliated with the nonprofit. A representative from the One Brooklyn Health System did not return a call. The victim was hospitalized, where he was listed in stable condition. The senseless attack marked the city's first subway shoving incident in 2026. My question is, how many times does this happen that people are shoved into the subway? I guess when you have a city of, 8 million, 10 million, 12 million, I don't know how many people live in New York City. this kind of crap is bound to happen. But you would think the people doing it are homeless or something. But no, we just got a guy who's mad at the world or wants a cheap thrill, um, or something along those lines. Crazy, man, crazy. You know, maybe he's upset with Putin, and the way the war's going in Ukraine. It's just wild. I mean, how could you do something like this? How could you do something like this? Absolutely terrible. Disgruntled Jets fan. I mean, Tech, yeah. Yeah, listen, New York football teams, unless you're from Buffalo, state of New York does all right, but New York City football teams, forget about it right now. And even the Yankees, they can't get over the hump. The Rangers, the Islanders, I mean, come on, the Mets. New York hasn't hoisted a champion. When's the last time New York hoisted a championship? It's been a while. But the Jets, the Jets are absolutely terrible. Their head coach is a cornerback. One of a really, really good cornerback in his day. And they finished the season without an interception, which is just freaking unbelievable to play 17 games. Your coach is a cornerback. You don't get an interception. That guy still has his job. And the Baltimore Ravens just fired John Harbaugh. I don't know what's going on in the NFL. But this is sad. I mean, dude, you know what I mean? I don't know what to say. Coming to America, I'm pushing somebody off a train. Give me a break. South Carolina man who kidnapped hit girlfriend with his car while she was calling 911, sentenced to 45 years behind bars. Looks like he got what was coming to him. Julian Assange eventually got back to Australia. Is he still incarcerated? Because he was in the Peruvian embassy in London for 8 years. Snowden ain't coming back to America. I read an article that he lives a very kind of cloistered life in Russia. They watch his movements, and he's only allowed to leave. It's like he's on house arrest for the rest of his life. But I'm sure it's still better than being in a federal prison in the United States. So, he kind of got away with one there. I think the Russians are probably watching him though, because if they ever wanna turn him over, they can just go and snatch him and trade him for an arms dealer. All right, California cheerleading coach convicted of 23 felonies for molesting girls as young as 9. I don't even want to read that. Terrible. Retired nurse stabbed, disemboweled by his 19-year-old roommate after kicking him out for not paying the rent. Wow. A 67-year-old man, Polk County, Tennessee, was allegedly killed by his 19-year-old roommate. What the hell is a 67-year-old man doing living with a 19-year-old, first of all? Sheriff Grady said in a press conference a neighbor called the sheriff's department. He had not heard from his friend, retired nurse John Tornio, 67. When a deputy arrived at the home, the neighbor informed her that Tornio had let a 19-year-old, Julian Trevino, move into his home with him in September. What? On December 10th, Tornio kicked Trevino out for not paying the rent or helping around the house. I mean, you got to wonder if there was more going on there than just you pay the rent and help out around the house. I mean, a 67-year-old man with a 19-year-old. The neighbor grew more concerned over the course of the day as Tornio did not respond to text, so he and other neighbors gained access and found the back bedroom was locked. They used a screwdriver to open it, discovered Tornio deceased and disemboweled. Jesus. Disemboweled? In the press conference, Judd said the reporting duty will receive more training. The reporting deputy will receive more training. He's been taken out of patrol for failing to determine whether Tornio was home. When a deputy arrived, the neighbor informed him to his home on December 10th. Da 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 da. Tornio kicked. The neighbor went inside and did not see Tornio. The deputy used tracking technology to see Tornio's car was in transit. She assumed Tornio was not home and cleared the call. Sorry, I read that too fast. Yeah, the neighbor grew concerned. Well, yeah, I don't know. I guess the neighbor. I guess when you get a call, hey, somebody's not home, somebody's missing, you should send a car, right? Like, do a welfare check. Go there and see. How did they use tracking technology so see that Tornio's car was in transit? She assumed Tornio was not home and cleared the call. In the press conference, judge said the reporting duty deputy will receive more training. Law and crime reports the investigation found Tornio's credit cards were used at a convenience store and a pizza restaurant where Trevino was employed as a dishwasher. The investigation tracked down Tornio's stolen car being driven by Trevino, and when he was approached, Trevino crashed the car and fled on foot. He was apprehended. Trevino allegedly confessed to killing Tornio. He said he had to live in a shed after being kicked out. He then claimed he broke into the home on December 13th, hid in a closet. Tornio woke up as Trevino was stealing cash and credit cards. Trevino then attacked Tornio with a kitchen knife, then beat his head with a wine bottle to ensure he was dead. Trevino has been charged with 14 felonies and 7 misdemeanors. Terribly, terribly sad. I'll tell you what, though, this guy, 19 years old, he will be tried as an adult. And if he's convicted, he will get a life sentence for murder. Yeah, when you read between the lines on many of these news articles, unfortunately, it's too bad the reporters never talk to people around the household. Yeah, you got to think police get so many calls where they just go and they do welfare checks. And, 95% of them are probably nothing. But if you don't look a little bit deeper, you're going to miss the really wild ones. However, I will say this. It appears that this deputy had already, the crime had already been committed, right? The guy was already driving around in his car. So probably wouldn't have changed anything. Another very, very sad case. And this guy, he confessed to everything. So they're going to have as long as the police took the confession intelligently and in the correct manner, they're going to have a rock solid case against him and should probably cruise to a conviction. Yeah. The law is very strange when it comes to adulthood. The way the law works with adulthood generally is they'll treat you better if you're a juvenile, but most of the time they're trying to turn juveniles into adults so that they can face harsher penalties. That's the direction that the criminal law goes in. They say, let's turn them into adults so that they get a harsher penalty if and when they do get convicted. Let's see, what else do we have here? Revisit the 1981 murders of 2 Pennsylvania kids and the teen sentenced to death for killing them. Another Pennsylvania. Are they highlighting this? Do they know I live in PA? Child returning home from play date finds parents dead from apparent murder-suicide. Very, very sad. 2 New York teens sentenced for fatal shooting of 3-year-old in 2024. You're killing. Wow. This is one depressing website. I'll tell you that, man. Bronx man allegedly tortured stepdaughter by ramming needle-like object through her nose into brain. Florida woman, that's what I started with. Phoenix serial killer Cleophas Cooksey sentenced to death for a string of 6 murders in 2017. My question is this: how many murders do you have to commit to be a serial killer? Right? More than 2, I imagine. Damn hoodlum stealer and Eagles fan. You skipped over the guy barricading a pregnant woman. They're all crazy. They're all crazy, man. They're all wild. I want to look at this serial killer though, because um, they say, serial killers for the most part do not exist much anymore, right? And doesn't it seem like the 70s were the golden age for serial killers? And then you get in the 90s, you have like Jeffrey Dahmer, and since then you just don't have that many anymore. And I read about that theory, and the consensus, I believe, is that given changes in technology, more video, law enforcement doing a better job of solving cases, it's just a lot harder to be a serial killer. You know what I mean? They all got laid off. And so, whereas in the 60s and the 70s and before that, and what really makes me curious is like, have serial killer, like, we all know about Jack the Ripper, right? Which was like the early 1900s and late 1800s. Like, did serial killers exist before that? Like, have serial killers been around since the beginning of time? Or is serial killer more of a modern phenomena when you get people living at, like, millions of people living in cities? So now you're in a community where everybody doesn't know each other, right? Like, I kind of feel like if you went to medieval times and you have like a little fiefdom and you have the king or the local lord and all the peasants, like, everybody knows each other. So you can't really be a serial killer. Like, you probably kill one person, but then they're going to get you. But you live in the peasants, they're not allowed to just travel willy-nilly out of their territory, right? But you get to modern times, and you have these cities, and you have like all these people from all over come to these cities. Nobody knows each other, and technology isn't that good yet. And there's all kinds of places to take somebody and kill them. And so, I feel like modern cities and access to more privacy created the serial killer phenomenon. I'm not saying they didn't exist in the past. It's just, I don't know that we have very many recorded incidents. I did see, because I'm kind of a I love Roman history. I did see, I never watched this video, but there was a video on an alleged serial killer in ancient Rome. And as well, you know what? That fits my theory, right? Where you have a city and you have all these million, like, because Rome back then had like 1 million people. It was the biggest city in the world. And you have all these people, and they come from all over to go live in Rome to find work. And so it's easy to grab somebody and just kill them. And then in the 1800s, you start getting these massive populations in these cities all over the world, and it creates a serial killer boom. And my other question is like, are serial killers, like, are there serial killers? I mean, I think there are, but like, are there serial killers in Asia? Are there serial killers in Russia? Like, is it a cultural thing? Is it just something in like America and Europe? I don't know. I'm sure I doubt that it is, but I wonder what effect culture has on it. So it's kind of fascinating, but the current consensus is that there's just too many, that law enforcement and people, locking doors now and being safer overall, and cell phones has made it much more difficult for a serial killer to proliferate, right? I mean, this guy got to 6, but it looks like he did it all very quickly. But eventually they got him. We're about to read about it. In the Old West, there were plenty of people with big body counts. That's true, but they weren't, those killings were not like, I think too, to be a serial killer, you need to kill like for pleasure or joy or fun or some deep depraved reason. Whereas these killers in the Old West were just like, they just got into scuffles all the time, and there was no law, so they would kill to get out of something or to rob and steal. So are you, if you kill a bunch of people in, because you're robbing banks all the time and shooting the bank tellers, and you got 10 bank tellers on your body count, are you a serial killer? I don't think so. Like that doesn't feel like a serial killer, does it? Charles Cullen, number of his victims between 40 and 400, 9 different hospitals, New Jersey and PA during his 16-year career. When was this? When was his career? Would be my question. I'm not too familiar with Cullen, but I imagine his career was in the 60s, 70s, 80s, because by the 90s they kind of went away. But let's see this article. Serial killer has been sentenced to death for 6 of 8 murders he was convicted of committing in 2017. Maricopa County Attorney General Rachel Mitchell sentencing of Cleophas Cooksey Jr. This killing spree began 4 months after Cooksey was released from prison on a manslaughter conviction. Wow. So had already been convicted for killing somebody, and he's back out there. He'd been involved in a robbery at a strip club that ended in a fatal gunfire. On November 27, 2017, Cooksey killed Parker Smith, Andrew Remillard. Over the next few weeks, killed Salim Richards, Latori Beckford, Christopher Cameron, Maria Villanueva. The spree ended when he shot and killed his mother and stepfather, according to the Attorney General's office. Cooksey was suspected in the killing of a 9th victim, Jesus Real, his ex-girlfriend's brother, but prosecutors declined to charge him. He was caught when he answered his mother and stepfather's door, police responding to a call that reported gunfire. In addition to the bodies of his mother and stepfather, police also found items in the home, later determined by the investigation to belong to the victims, killed between November 27th and December 17th. November 20. So that is a really short period of time to go on a killing spree. Police said that when an officer tried to detain Cooksey, he threatened to slit his throat. Cooksey shot and killed a total of 8 people, but the jury was undecided on the punishment for the murders of Renee Cooksey and Nunn. The AG, Attorney General, is considering whether to seek a sentencing retrial or stop seeking the death penalty on them altogether, and have a judge impose life sentences. CBS News reports that at the time of the killings, the public was not made aware of the investigation to find a serial killer. According to the outlet, Cooksey was acquainted with some of the victims. Police never shared a motive. Well, the guy had a trial, so, you can look at the trial and find out what the motive was. The trial was delayed by COVID-19. The jury found Cooksey guilty of 8 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of armed robbery. There's a motive. Robbery, 2 counts of kidnapping, 1 count of attempt to commit sexual assault, another motive. Cooksey maintained his innocence when the verdict was read. In addition to his death sentence, was given more than 9 years in prison for the non-capital charges. This is, that I will say this though is, if you try to kill, it's like the Las Vegas shooter, right? Like you can kill a lot of, like, is the Las Vegas shooter a serial killer? It's just a matter of words. But if you kill a lot of people in a short period of time, it's probably harder to be discovered. Then again, maybe not. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense there. I guess if you act quickly, I think it can be a little harder. This guy doesn't feel to me like a traditional serial killer, but I think he probably fits the definition. He was kind of killing people he knew. I don't know if it was just a revenge thing or just a general disregard for human life. Some of it was involved with a robbery, so maybe he was just the kind of person that valued no human life and would just kill whenever he needed money or items. But very sad. Charles Cullen, 2003 when they got him. Yeah, I'm not saying that serial killers are totally gone, and they still were kind of there in the 90s, but you don't find too many in the last 20 years. We have here Cleophas Cooksey. Otherwise, there would be a lot of paisanos in La Cosa Nostra that would be considered serial killers. Exactly, Tech. That's what I'm saying is like, there's gang members and organized crime and people. I guess they're serial. I don't know. Is the Iceman a serial killer? The guy. Hold on. It was a guy. Let me see. The Iceman. Richard Kalinsky. Is he a serial killer? Let's see real quick here. If they see, they don't even serial killer isn't even mentioned on his Wikipedia page, and he was convicted. Let's see, how many people did he kill? It's got to be on here. Early crimes, additional victims. Kalinsky claimed to have murdered around 200 people. So does that make him a serial? He was a hitman, right? So the serial killer moniker has to come with, I think, some sort of depraved reason, or better yet, like killings that don't serve a purpose, right? Like non-utilitarian killings. Because if you're killing because you're part of an organized crime ring, and you take people out for reasons of power or snuffing competition, or retribution, I think that's different. Serial killers just kill for the thrill of killing, or they kill for their own internal purposes, and more along the lines of a Jeffrey Dahmer or a John Wayne Gacy. But it's interesting to hop on this website and see them talk about a serial killer. Here we go. I mean, the Florida thing, Florida man, Florida woman. Okay. Oh, well, we got Ohio man. Georgia swingers play date meetup ends in fatal shooting. Florida woman allegedly created child sex abuse material and shared it with a prisoner, serving time for similar crimes. One thing that will never cease to amaze me is sometimes you get women that are just totally into people who are in prison, and this woman, she got too into a guy in prison, and he probably talked her into this. Let's see. Florida woman's been charged with sexual abuse of a child, creating pornographic materials to share with an inmate. Taylor Michelle Dorsey was charged with 8 felony counts of sexual abuse of a child over 12 and the creation and distribution of related materials. Excuse me. During the investigation, authorities learned Dorsey allegedly sexually abused a child and produced pornographic materials, then shared them with an inmate in a federal prison for child sexual abuse. The nature of the relationship has not been disclosed. That's what I'm curious about, is the nature of the relationship. Like if he met her when she was in and then talked her into it. The question is, would you defend a suspected serial killer? Well, the truth is, yes, I would. Because a case like that can really, I mean, look, I'm in a strange business that some people really don't like, but a lawyer can be vaulted to fame, or maybe we call it infamy, if they represent somebody on a high profile case. And we all know this because of Johnny Cochran and O.J. Simpson, Jose Baez, and what's her name that killed her daughter. So if you get a high profile case like that, even if the person is, maybe just terrible all around, the truth is that it's a wonderful case for a defense lawyer. And if a defense lawyer not only like if you get the case, it's going to raise your profile, but if you win the case, a good defense, a really, really good defense lawyer is like something of a real life wizard, right? Like, you can pull off the impossible. And people who are facing criminal charges all over the country will flock to you and pay you vast amounts of money. So I would accept it. Pittsburgh doesn't have that many high-profile criminal cases. We do have locally high-profile cases, which it still is. It's still beneficial because you get on the local news and etc., and your name gets around. but not quite the same as what was it, Casey Anthony? Yeah, if you get a Casey Anthony trial, the thing about Florida is that these trials are televised. We don't televise them in Pennsylvania. So if a Casey Anthony happened in Pennsylvania, it probably still wouldn't get the same amount of publicity. There have been really big trials in Pennsylvania, though. Obviously, Bill Cosby was a big one. So yeah, I would defend a serial killer, but they would have to pay for it, right? Like they gotta have the cash tech. But a case like that, again, could really help. Although when you're dealing with a serial killer, Johnny Cochran and F. Lee Bailey were able to get O.J. Simpson off, and getting someone off who allegedly committed a single crime obviously is much easier than people who have committed a string of crimes, and that just the odds of winning precipitously fall unless there's some sort of fatal flaw that runs through all the cases. So yeah, I am not a pro bono attorney. The running joke in my profession is pro bono. The pro bono work I do are the clients who don't pay, and I do sometimes get clients on a payment plan, but if I had like a serial killer, or you get like a murder or something, that's going to be a lot of work, and then you got to get paid up front, and you got to make sure you get that money. And a serial killer would be a heck of a job. One other thing too, though, is I am not certified to defend people in capital cases. And Pennsylvania still has the death penalty. In Pittsburgh itself, we don't get too many capital cases, but some of the surrounding counties we do. So, but defense lawyers have a special certification in order to defend a capital case, because there's a lot of extra things you need to inform your client of, options you have to present to them through the process. So it takes some special training, which I could do. I just haven't set aside the time to do it. I am not pro bono, but I'm not the most expensive lawyer in the area. But, if I had a serial killer and I won the case, then I might turn into that lawyer. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. It's a little late. I'm going to try to get to bed. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share, guys. FIL Tech. I truly appreciate it. Trying to grow this channel. I'm just trying different things to see what sticks. So, you guys drop me comments. Let me know what you want to talk about, legally related. Dumb question. You ever defended somebody you thought was innocent, but then discovered they were guilty? I'm sure that kind of sucks, but is expected sometimes. Yeah, that's happened. But from my perspective, it doesn't really matter. Like, the defense lawyer, if you're going to be a criminal defense lawyer, you must decide that regardless of guilt or innocence, you are going to do the best possible job that you can on somebody's case. And the truth is, what my clients tell me, it does matter because it can be useful to me. But more of what I'm focused on is the Commonwealth's case, right? I'm more focused on the evidence that the Commonwealth plans to present against my client, because they have the burden of proof. So I could do an entire case without necessarily knowing, I don't want to use the word knowing. I could do the entire case without my client telling me his or her version of events. I could do the entire case like that. I don't need to know what they say or didn't say. Yes, the answer is yes. I have had a scenario where it's like, what you're asking me, Zephyr, is like, deep down, do I kind of like form my own opinion? And then, yeah, I mean, I do. I think that's human. It's impossible not to, but I've been doing this long enough and good enough that like, I say this, it doesn't impact me in any way whatsoever. My job is to defend my client to the utmost within the rules of criminal procedure, and don't need to know, don't want to know, but maybe both, Tech. I usually say to my clients, what can you tell me that is useful? Right? Like, tell me something that I can use. What is useful? And some clients, like, as soon as I meet them, they tell me, what happened, or whether or not they did it. Um, the vast majority of cases, it's not about like most of my clients, I do a lot of DUIs, but even, lesser non DUI crimes, thefts, assaults, etc. They almost all tell me their version of events. And it's not, and oftentimes it's a matter of interpretation. Is like my client's version more believable than the Commonwealth's, right? Sorry, I'm in Pennsylvania, so it's a Commonwealth, the state. The prosecution, like, is my client's version more believable than the prosecution? And that's how I have to judge the case. But some cases it's like, or my client, like, I get people who are like pulled over and there's a gun in the car and they're a person not to possess, so they get charged with a felony gun. And then it's like, well, do they have the evidence to pin that on my client? Like, it actually doesn't matter if my client put it there or didn't. What matters is, can they pin it on the evidence? Now, it may matter if I can point the finger at somebody else and my client's willing to testify and say that, or somebody's willing to come forward and say the gun was theirs, et cetera, it can have an impact. But absent that, it may not really have an impact. It's just, I'm going to talk about the positioning of the gun, etc. So, the one time I had to engage a lawyer, I could not provide them with any useful information because I was given drug. Can't remember anything even to this day. Yeah, that happens. People are drugged. They have no recollection. I get a lot of DUI clients who say to me, they'll be like, Joe, I honestly don't recall a thing. And then I have to go off of the body cam, the dash cam, and the officer statements to see if we can defend the case. And sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. I first asked you this a few years ago, but maybe you have since ever read the book or seen the movie Presumed Innocent. No. Before I go, let's look. Is this it? Tech? Is it with Jake Gyllenhaal? This is a series. Oh, I mean, I've read some of I've read Scott Turo's books. Scott Turo. Which book of his did I read? I read this book, 1L, because Scott Turo is a lawyer and he wrote this book. Is this what you're talking about? The one by Scott Turo? Excuse me. I will check it out. And let's see, was this made into a movie setting? See what adaptations. Before the original novel, Sidney Pollack bought the film rights, was eventually released, directed by Alan Pakula and Harrison Ford. Okay, let's see. I'd much rather watch that than a Jake Gyllenhaal series. Not that I don't like Jake Gyllenhaal, but I'd rather watch Harrison Ford. 1990 American legal thriller based on the 1987 novel written by Pakula and Frank Pearson. Let's see here. Presumed Innocent, 1990 streaming. I'm going to watch it. And, it's on Tubi for free? Absolutely, I'll watch it. YouTube, $4. Amazon Prime, $4. If I can catch it on Tubi for $4, I'm going to watch it. It's a good one, I imagine. Look, Harrison Ford's tremendous, so I imagine it's pretty good. All right, guys, thank you everybody for tuning in. My name is Attorney Joe Palmetto, Joe the Lawyer. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Anytime, drop me comments or let me know on the channel if you want me to talk about certain topics. I think I'm kind of falling into a true crime, true trial sort of niche, but I'm happy to talk about other things as well. All right. Have a tremendous day. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Joe the Lawyer is checking out. Not his wife, his ex-mistress. All right. Got it. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you.